Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Mariologier, he of the receding hairline. And this is Tomorrow Seems So Long Ago. Yesterday seems so long ago. Sitting in a clouded living room, staring out at season-changing skies. Onomatopoeic clouds riffraff through winter streets, paved with dead-eyed faces, half buried, all broken and beat with cruel whips and laid in chains, all in their rightful place. Yesterday seems so long ago. Gaze far enough ahead, and you could conjure vivid images of yesterday's apocalypses. The doom and gloom and downfall which the dawn of that age and its present tense enlightenment presented then as truth and fact with neither doubt nor hesitation. The past bears remarkable pockmarks from the present and the future upon its brutish facial features. Cigarette burns like hollow wells and silver bells upon its arms from wrist till shoulder joint. Those who would not care to reflect properly and tenderly upon the fragmented history we found and sought and saw in ancient tombs like wombs of knowledge opened and excavated, are doomed to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, or would willingly do so, seeing neither this nor that nor tit nor tat. As though the entirety of the human race live in a permanent and perplexing purgatory, repeating all its follies, flaws and faults with gusto and windbag bravado. For the hysteria and persecution of yesterday was stupid and unenlightened. How dumb and unknowing they were back then, in medieval times or Victorian times or when whatever, never mind. Not enlightened, woke and brilliant as we are in the here and now, the present tense neurosis of our droll, drooling, drumstruck drama manufacturing lips, wagging fingers and shaking hips. Yesterday seems so long ago. Gobbly-goo and gracious gutter-mouthed goddess goodness, how thrice cursed and dementedly stupid they were back in those yesterdays. Burning witches or torturing heretics for the crime of, well, whatever, never mind. Or persecuting homosexuals or gypsies, Jews, the Sami people for the sake of, well, whatever, never mind. Enlightened then by the grace of God and depraved spiritual decadence, far from what we are now. Enlightened by the shining secular light of our gibber, gruff, grunted grime and guffaw, intellectual elitism through the burning grace of depraved intellectual decadence, a weird coincidence of time and time slips that brought morality and ethics to its knees in academic word salads, pondering and proposing perpetual postmodern nihilism, where nothing is truth except that which I myself say is truth, which is, always and ever, the complete opposite of what you may say is truth. As long as you disagree with what I myself say is truth from lived experience that I and only I can experience, not you and only you. There is no objective truth, except the truth that there is no objective truth. For morality is highly relative, say the clouds and raindrops both in two-faced harmony, in depravity and ecstasy, in paranoia and in insecurity. And relativity is highly moral, the grounded hill upon which to die, you see, you sheem, you bugger off and die. And a high relativity of nebulous morality necessarily must come to mean that my present tense morality is of higher worth than your past tense morality. This despite morality being deeply loved and fondled relativity, relative to my stance on certain issues, but not your stance on certain issues. For the moral ground on which you stand is so standoffish and icky, tiring to these delicate sensibilities of mine which I have cultivated as my highest moral virtue and my one and only saving grace, the Illuminati of offence taken, yet never given. Despite morality being relative, my morality is more relative than your morality, and so my morality is the true and proper morality to which all must adhere, relatively speaking. Tomorrow seems so long ago. With a mind clouded by swamp gas and mulch rats, I sit and watch the rain drip onto the streets below, whose pavement cracks and sinkhole gaps are filled with the blood of men from ages past and long since gone. Blood that has coagulated and hardened into cement to keep the cracks from cracking back up, to keep the lines in place and keep the streets aligned. Millennia of rough, hard, difficult work and tiring toil that takes its toll on soul and body both, a certain sacrifice of self done for the greater good, or out of necessity, and more, or all, for all. Tomorrow seems so long ago. At the moment of writing, and reading. I hear the drilling, hammering, clattering and crashing of hard work and manual labor outside, making it hard to focus, hence the tonal shift. The entirety of the exterior wall of our apartment complex is to be taken down and replaced. It's been going on for months now. It is cold outside, and it has been cold for quite some time. Wet, slippery, freezing and raining, cold winds. These guys are up in the scaffolding, no matter the wear or tear of the weather, the cold creeping winds or rain, working on getting it done, more likely than not being paid far less than they deserve. I cannot help but notice that there are precious few women in these kinds of jobs, though this, I have been told, is due to the environment being so toxically masculine or masculinely toxic that women are forced to not apply to such jobs, preferring instead the gender quotas of the well-paid and high-status jobs to these low-status jobs that are best done by the slave race. Women cannot be expected to make their own choices. All their choices, you have to understand, is made for them by society and nothing but society. So help me God. To be honest, I don't care if there are women in such jobs or not. I do, however, find it incredibly amusing that there seems to be no push for gender balance in these and other dirty, grubby, hard and dangerous low-status jobs. No matter the necessity and importance of such jobs. Odd and peculiar, given that gender balance is so incredibly important in this world of ours. Diversity is our greatest strength after all. And diversity, you have got to understand, means everyone and everything except straight white men. Or pale, male and stale, as the feminist inquisition have dubbed it. Still no bigotry or hatred here, guys and gals. This is just punching up. By kicking down. I cannot help but think about coal mines and construction work from long ago and ages past. I cannot help but think about factory work and work-related accidents and death. Pictures from the construction of the Empire State Building, dangling God only knows how far above the ground without a safety net, building this giant bloody thing which they will never reap any benefit from in all probability, for far too little pay with all certainty, sacrificing limbs and life, and possibly their livelihood through sacrificing limbs and life in order to provide and to protect, or only to survive. Here I sit, sheltered and shaded by the walls which these guys are now fixing and replacing, typing away with all the comfort I could possibly wish to have. Warm coffee, soft sofa lights, electric heat, indoor plumbing, records and movies and books, all mass manufactured and right there at my fingertips for my immediate enjoyment whenever I could wish, with the entirety of the internet right before my googly eyes for even more entertainment, information, diversion and distraction. I cannot help but think that, whatever I may think about the value of the written word, about the value of art and culture and, as such, the value of the work I do, it pales and goes down the drain in comparison to the value of the work done by those guys outside who fix my walls while I sit here and type in comfort, getting slightly annoyed at the noise they make as they drill and hammer. George Orwell put it so brilliantly in his absolutely astonishing work, The Road to Wigan Pier, which I think is one of the best books I have ever read. I cannot find the exact quote, but it talks about how much he will produce in his lifetime as a writer, maybe a shelf of books, whereas the coal miner, in a day of work, produced a vast amount of coal, which then helped to fuel all of England. And this type of work, all manner of manual labour, is for some perverse reason considered unimportant, considered low, a career no one should wish for, to such an extent that we simply take it for granted. This is perverse and obscene. Instead of meeting these men with gratitude and respect for the work and sacrifice they do, our cultural and societal zeitgeist would rather meet them with contempt and ridicule, simply for them being men, and as such being deeply flawed for some reason. They are ridiculed. For having low-status jobs, they are ridiculed. And yes, the inevitable addendum. I am well aware that Orwell was a socialist. I am not a socialist. I used to be back in the day, but was luckily able to drag my head out of the gutter of ideological thinking, and so realize the necessity for nuance and the imprisoning nature of ideology. An immature mind plus promises of free shit is undoubtedly a dangerous combination. As it stands, I do not embrace any ideology that I am aware of. I am still able to agree with quite a lot of what the man said and wrote, despite not agreeing with everything. At the end of the day, it was tyranny he most opposed, and that, if anything, I am in complete agreement with. At the same time, I cannot help but think that somewhere in some cozy, cushy office job or home office, some feminist journalist, that is to say glorified blogger, of fantastic and pure relative morality, which is only relative as far as her solipsism allows it to go, is hastily and angrily typing away at her goddamned overpriced Apple product, some excruciating piece in which she pines and cries and claws at the plushy exterior of her cushioned seat about the horrors of men and of masculinity, googling a few words, perhaps, to be certain of their meaning and their spelling, then proceeding to type the woe is me story of the day about the horrors of having a man look at her once, some 10 years ago, and how this ought to be outlawed and punished to the full extent of the law for him giving her PTSD through the awesome might and strength of his male gaze, and as such his toxic entitlement to her body. Never once, during her paid-by-the-word ranting and raving, will she ever consider the fact that, if the electricity should fail so that she could not do her job of whining about men and the terrors of masculinity, chances are that it would be men who got the electricity up and running again. Or if the plumbing should fail, the same applies. If the sewers are clogged up, you catch my drift. It is all taken for granted, and never a thought given to how it all works as well as it does, never any acknowledgement or gratitude for what men, in general, do to keep the wheels of society running. Nothing but scorn, ridicule, and fear. When she is done with her daily pounding of 800 to 1,000 words of male-bashing, male-shaming hatred of the male, she reaches for her overpriced Starbucks coffee. She takes a sip, sighs a contented yet annoyed sigh, and carries on with her next piece. A complaint about the temperature in her office building, perhaps, or the misogyny of having to pay as much as she does for a spicy Starbucks diarrhea, when all the terrible men out there is paid more than she is paid for risking their lives and limbs every day. In actuality and in certainty, she ought to be given a cheaper Starbucks coffee and free this, that and the other, for the plight of womanhood is such a terrible burden on the frail and fractured feminist few. Surely, men have poisoned the well and sprinkled rat droppings atop her cinnamon bun. Also, men smell bad and they are poopy heads. Tomorrow seems so long ago. What manner of vulture morality would allow for demonization of entire groups of people based on absolutely nothing but arbitrary characteristics, superficial and shallow as that is? Human morality, apparently. Lackluster feminist morality, driven as it is by the full fury of emotion rather than intellect. We live in an age of mass hysteria, cows in a constant stampede, perpetuated by the never-ending shit-flinging and lies designed to terrify from feminist journalists and academics, politicians and teachers, telling women everywhere all the time that they must be frightened, nay, terrified of men and masculinity, that they are never safe, not even from their sons, husbands, fathers, brothers. What better way to rule than through fear and terror? What better way to gather vast armies under your banner than through telling them that you and only you know how to save them and how to vanquish the enemy? When you have been irrationally scared out of your mind all your livelong life through the propaganda of war, it is very easy to accept dehumanization of the enemy. The enemy started it. They are out to get you, and have been out to get you all your life, and all your mother's life, and all your grandmother's life, and so forth and so on. You deserve better, the enemy don't deserve shit. Very easy to not see the effect the war rhetoric has on the enemy, for the enemy is the enemy and is, as such, not worthy of consideration. Simple as that. It seems to me and my monochrome neuroticism that as both a species and as a civilized society, humanity need their scapegoats. We need someone to blame. It is devilishly delicious to have someone whom we can hate. The in-group needs their out-group. The out-group needs to know that they are the out-group. Someone must be blamed, and they must be blamed by boiling all the shit and reek and filth of society down into the simplest shit stew we could possibly create. A black and white goo where there is only ever black and white. This group or that group. In the case of feminism, It is women and it is men. And any criticism of feminism has become an attack on all women everywhere, despite feminism being an ideology and women not being an ideology. For feminism speaks on behalf of all women everywhere, even the women who do not agree with them and their pettiness. It sees no qualms in attacking all men everywhere, by painting masculinity as an ideology, a pathology, a mental health challenge, a whatever, instead of the natural state of being a man. They are only attacking masculinity, see, not men. If men just stopped being men, men would be quite alright in their book. Obviously. Men are obsolete, but feminism don't hate men, and misandry don't reel. Obviously. Because it is not about hating men, except when it is, and when it is wholly justified and proper hatred, for the oppressed have every right to hate their oppressors, despite feminism not being about hating men. It's just about hating the state of being a man, which is not a natural state of being for a man. Despite men being naturally more prone to all that is bad, it is not natural for a man to be a man. What is natural is for a man to be more like a woman, despite there being no differences between the sexes, except when it is, despite that it isn't. Our societies have no common enemy and no common goal and no grand unifying anything anymore. All we have are pissing contests and broken down walls, immaturity and apparent wishes for immortality, in relative morality, all while flexing our immorality. Tribal this and tribal that, tribal piss and tribal puss, patterns in the sand and patterns in time, all happening and then repeating some more, only changing what is in and what is out, what is accepted hate and what is not, for that matter, changing what is hate and what is not through flimsy fault line philosophies that pretend to say something profound without saying anything at all, giving nothing but the flimsiest justification for their hatred and their bigotry and their absolutely terrible double standards, hypocrisy and dim-witted quest for equality, meaning nothing but give me this because vulva. Men as a whole have become the scapegoat, masculinity the original sin, and we accept and carry on. As due process is eroded, as the bewitching witch hunt of past days' gory glory is replayed in strange historical reenactments, giving neither chance nor pause nor a moment's thought that maybe, just maybe, we ought to stop and think and breathe instead of reacting immediately and stupidly, flaunting all the moral bravery and virtuous calamity of unthinking beasts that sense their queen and hive threatened by outside forces. Just maybe we ought to stop so that we do not repeat the errors of past prosecutions, terror and insanity. Alas, no. Here we stand, doomed to repetition, tried and true formulas. There must be someone to blame for all and for nothing, by golly, and if we cannot blame these people, we surely can blame those people. Tomorrow seems so long ago. Thank you very much for watching. Here follows an outro most befitting a video of this nature, a blatant attempt at virtual panhandling. Should you wish to support this channel, as well as my blog and any further endeavours this strange path will take me on, there are a few ways you can do that. The easiest would be to like, share and subscribe, as well as clicking the sometimes functional notification bell. Having the message, such as it is, manspread and mansplained far and wide will do wonders. You could also support my rambling and barely contained insanity by buying my books, which are linked below. More books will be made available as time allows. I also have a Redbubble shop, linked below, where you can buy prints in various forms of some of the artwork presented in my videos. Or you can contact me through the contact form on my blog for original artwork, commissions or prints direct from the source, so to speak. Until next time, I am your humble bearded bard, Morea Legier, manspreading majestically beneath the steel sky of doom.